Hey folks, Nick O'Malley here with MassLive.com on a Friday morning where New England is having to sift through a couple things. One, a snowstorm that went through the region last night, and a big story from ESPN that went live at about 1 a.m. Friday morning that has a whole lot of details and reports and rumors about the New England Patriots organization, especially as it pertains to the current relationship between Bill Belichick, Tom Brady, and Robert Kraft. The story is kind of a bombshell in terms of rumors coming out of New England. We don't hear a lot of stuff coming from the Patriots organization. And to help us break down the story and sort of react and figure out what to do about it, we are bringing in reporter Kevin Duffy to kind of figure out what we're taking away from the story. How you doing today, Kevin?
Hey, Nick. How's it going, man?
All right, good. Now, I woke up this morning, shoveled off my car, and sat down. It's pretty long. What were your initial takeaways from the story this morning?
I think it reinforces some of what has been written kind of speculatively. Like Tom Curran, who's a very well-sourced reporter here, and certainly had sourced the column he wrote recently about there possibly being an end-of-the-party type feel to this thing in New England. I think that kind of syncs up with what you read today. Just a few interesting nuggets. I think that the fact that they had offered Garoppolo a contract extension with that escalated to salaries of 17, 18 million at some point, that was a revelation to me. I had not known that before, although that has been refuted by a few people here today. The fact that Bill Belichick met with Roger Goodell and had a long private meeting, and the article actually said that Belichick and Goodell have become, quote, good friends recently. So it was really, there were a bunch of different things. Some of it is, I don't know if I was stunned by anything, but I thought it was, pretty well fleshed out and kind of painted a clearer picture of what's going on in New England.
Yeah, the story by ESPN's Seth Wickersham, it had a number of details. A lot of it has to do with the relationship with Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, a lot of reports were saying that the big thing that the report really kind of the picture it painted was that Brady wanted Garoppolo out, and Brady wanted to be the guy, and he sort of forced Garoppolo out, which runs counter to what we've read in a lot of instances. Do you think? Are you buying that Brady forced a trade for Garoppolo?
I don't think I don't know if he forced the trade. I'm sure he was happy to see him traded. I think it would probably be accurate, and it's, I'm not sourcing this myself. I don't know, but I could imagine that as Garoppolo was kept longer and longer, especially through the NFL draft, there was probably some uneasiness for Tom Brady because, the guy was pretty good when he played for the Pats, and he's 15 years younger. It's common sense to think that, hey, this could be the guy who replaces me. And the longer they held on to him, the more likely it was that he was going to replace Tom Brady. So going to Kraft and explicitly forcing a trade, I haven't heard that. I don't think many people have heard that. But hoping that he would be traded and feeling a little bit relieved when he was traded, how the article described, the week after Garoppolo was dealt, Brady was in a great mood and was, it seemed like a weight had been lifted off his shoulders. I could definitely see that as being true. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, the most surprising detail or anecdote that came from the story was as it pertained to Jimmy Garoppolo and Brady and Alex Guerrero, which is kind of like the third part of this. Alex Guerrero, Brady's personal trainer, business partner. The fact that when Jimmy Garoppolo reportedly, when he injured his shoulder in 2016, went to go get treatment at the TB12 Sports Therapy Center in Foxborough and ended up finding the doors locked, which sounds super petty. And we've heard a lot of reports and claims that Brady and Garoppolo have a good relationship and how they were the three-person wolf pack for a while. But that was a big surprise to come out of the story for me.
Yeah, that's a good point. That was actually probably number one. I should have mentioned that at the top. That was, as you said, that seems really petty, and I don't think that Brady ever felt it necessary to go like above and beyond and be a mentor for Jimmy Garoppolo because, why would you want to do that to someone who's going to take your job? But from what I've talked to some people who were close with Garoppolo, and they never expressed to me that there was any looked up to Tom and appreciated anything that Tom did for him. And that's just what I was told. Again, there's a lot of stuff people are told that's not true. So it could be true that something like that occurred, that Brady did indeed have the TB12 center locked when Garoppolo tried to get treated, but that seems really over the top and unnecessary. And that was probably the biggest revelation to come from the story.
And speaking of the TB12 center, Alex Guerrero has been a recurring theme for the Patriots in the past few weeks, with a lot of rumors, particularly starting with the report that Belichick fully banned Guerrero from the sidelines and from team charters. And it kind of goes into more depth about Brady's relationship with Guerrero. It really did have an interesting angle about how if you're a receiver for the Patriots and you want to try and get in tight with Tom Brady, but you're stuck between trying to ingratiate yourself to the greatest of all time in terms of quarterbacks and then Belichick with his Super Bowl rings, do you think that created some sort of tension in the locker room for Patriots players?
Yeah, that's very possible. Again, no players have indicated that. I mean, when the first round of this came up, when the Globe had written that story about Guerrero and Belichick having some friction, a lot of players were asked about that in the locker room, and even asked about working with Alex Guerrero. And no one really indicated that it was an issue of picking sides between Brady and Belichick. But then again, they never would do that. They never would say that on the record to us. So that I've always, there's always been something between Belichick and Guerrero this year. It's been pretty clear. He wouldn't revoke his sideline access and his access inside the stadium if there wasn't something going on there. And to me, the quote that jumped out just from the beginning of this whole thing was about a month ago, maybe a couple of weeks ago. Bill Belichick was asked if his relationship with Tom Brady has changed here, and Belichick simply said, "Every year is different," and that was it. He didn't say anything else after that. So, to me, that was just a very strange way to answer that question. It was Belichick had a chance to basically kind of extinguish some of the rumors and some of the noise around this whole thing, but he actually just threw more fuel on the fire by answering the question like that, by just saying every year is different. So there probably is some level of friction between Belichick and Brady. Is that enough to prevent them from winning the Super Bowl this year? I don't think so. I mean, they're the favorite in the AFC, and I think if they play the way they should come out of the AFC. But if you're looking in the larger picture of who's going to be the last one standing there, I mean, this stuff all is going to come into play.
Do you think that either Brady or Belichick are gone this offseason? Because the big thing that the story kind of set up was that this is sort of the end of the road for this sort of trio. Do you think all three are back next year?
Yes, I do. They don't have another – Brady has to be back next year because they have no other quarterback. I mean, they have Brian Hoyer, but they have nobody else who's capable of stepping in as a starter. And given the way that things are looking, I mean, it's likely, or maybe not likely, but it's possible that McDaniels and Patricia leave. So they would have to fill in some gaps there on the coaching staff. So I think when you're talking about this having the feel of like the end of the party, I don't know if it's because of the Garoppolo trade. It's not the end of Brady in New England. If they had kept Garoppolo, it might have been the end of Brady in New England. But there's just going to be a lot of turnover. They've had the same coordinators in place since 2012. McDaniels and Patricia have been with the organization even longer than that, although McDaniels he was in Denver and St. Louis for a little bit. They had Garoppolo there for 3.5 years. Everything kind of looked set and in place. It looked like they had a very simple transition to the future. And suddenly, within a matter of months, you no longer have Garoppolo. You have probably McDaniels and or Patricia out the door. And Nick Caserio has even been mentioned, and he's interviewing for for jobs as well. So you have just a lot of moving parts and a lot of uncertainty with how the franchise is going to look, even as early as March.
Yeah, it's been just a lot of changes overall. Now, the response from a lot of Patriots fans has been kind of negative, considering this is ESPN Seth Wickersham. Wickersham did write that post last year or so about how the Deflategate was kind of a makeup call for Spygate, and ESPN had the 11 and 12 footballs report. So that's going to fuel a lot of ESPN anger from Patriots fans. Did you have any issues with when I read it? I had an issue with some liberties the piece took. I was kind of taken aback by the argument that Wickersham made that that Brady was super tentative and checking down because he was breaking down physically, and the example he used was that pass to Chris Hogan over the middle where he kind of forcing Hogan got hurt. I get there's a lot of like unnamed sources, and like I'm not. Some people are. Adam Schefter went on WEI this morning, had to say this isn't a hit piece, and I'm not saying that, but I thought it did take some liberties. And one more example was after the Garoppolo trade, the Wickersham pointed out that Brady went up to hug Robert Kraft. Tom Brady hugs Robert Kraft all the time. That's not exactly news.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I guess it depends. Yeah, I mean, we see him after the games sometimes in the videos the Patriots post, and in the few times that Kraft is in the locker room. So that's a good point by you. I didn't really have any issues with it. It's just, people really point to the anonymous source thing, and I think it's just such a common practice in sports journalism, and whether that's right or wrong, I'm not sure, but that's just it happens an awful lot in sports. And what I would say is that I think someone like Seth Wickersham, I have a trust that when a reporter who's that accomplished, I don't think they're making stuff up blindly. Again, when you're talking to a bunch of different people and people have motives for talking to you, there's a chance you're going to get misled and you're going to be writing something that's not the truth. I trust guys like this who have accomplished the highest things in our industry to do their due diligence to recognize, do everything they can to find out what is the truth and what isn't, and to flesh that out. It's a very difficult job because, the reason people are talking to you is because they want to get something out there, and oftentimes it's of course always to serve them, and oftentimes it's not quite how it happened. So it's a difficult balance if you're talking to both sides and you're trying to figure out what's true and what isn't.
All right, and before we wrap up, any final thoughts on this this piece and any reaction? Right, Belichick and the Patriots don't have any availabilities today, so we will not be gifted the opportunity of Bill Belichick getting asked about it and then grunting at us. And it's basically, that sneeze right there is about as knowledgeable a response you're going to get from Belichick in response to this report. Do you think anything changes from this moving forward?
No, I wonder, and try to ask around today, and when we get to the locker room, I wonder what players think when they read this. I don't know. I've always said stuff like this, I don't think it impacts the specific 2017 team on the field. I think they're so close. They're the 1 seed in the AFC. They've got 3 games to go to win the Super Bowl. They're a pretty heavy favorite in the AFC. It hasn't been a perfect regular season, but it's pretty damn good to start out 2-2 and then finish off 13-3. So this is not a team the actual team isn't in like disaster mode. There's no reason to panic about the actual team. To me, the question is just with what happens in the future and just the whole health of the franchise moving forward after this year. I don't think if Duron Harmon reads the story or if Kyle Van Noy reads the story, I don't think that's going to affect the way he's going to play and prepare for the divisional round game. I just think you're really talking about bigger picture things like how long is Belichick going to be the coach of the Patriots? How long is Brady going to be the quarterback? Those are the questions that you're discussing, not necessarily is this going to be the undoing of the 2017 Patriots.
All right, Kevin, thanks for joining us this morning. We're going to continue to sift through all this and actually cover, football and stuff as the Patriots get ready for a playoff game a week from Saturday. We'll actually find out who they're going to play this weekend. Until then, make sure to check in masslive.com/Patriots and follow all Kevin's stuff on Facebook, Twitter, all that. Thanks for checking in, Kevin.
All right, thanks, Nick.